The jungle stretched endlessly, a living web of twisting vines, massive trees, and strange, glowing fungi that lit the forest floor with a soft, eerie light. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and alien flowers that released their perfume only at night. Kaylara moved silently through it, her alien senses tuned to every sound, every rustle, every heartbeat that might indicate prey or danger. She had been tracking the luminescent creature for hours, moving with the precise grace of a huntress born for survival. Her clan depended on her skill. The creature she pursued was rare, vital for rituals that kept their society strong. Each step was deliberate. She pressed herself against tree trunks, stepping on thick roots to avoid snapping twigs. Her eyes, adapted to the dim light, caught the soft shimmer of the creature's scales, flickering like liquid light in the shadows. She crouched, drawing in a steady breath, ready to strike. Yet, even as she focused on the hunt, there was a sense of unease, a feeling she could not name. The forest seemed too quiet, as if it were holding its breath. Suddenly, a sharp snap cut through the silence. Kaylara's instincts screamed at her, but it was too late. A thin, darted projectile struck her shoulder, embedding itself deep in her flesh. The poison spread fast, a burning sensation crawling along her veins. Her muscles faltered, her vision blurred, and her balance wavered. She staggered back, trying to find the source of the attack, but the forest remained deceptively still. She forced herself to move, pressing on despite the searing pain, knowing that stopping meant death. She slipped through ferns and over twisted roots, her strength fading with every step. The poison was unlike anything she had encountered in her hunts. It was precise, deadly, and swift. Her eyes flickered over the trees, searching for threats, for rescue, for anything that might save her from this fate. Somewhere in the distance, human voices carried faintly on the humid air. At first, she thought it was a trick of her clouded mind, but then she saw movement. 2 legs in human boots pushing aside foliage with unpracticed precision. The human stopped when he saw her, his eyes wide with shock and curiosity. She could barely comprehend his presence, let alone his intention. Pride and suspicion warred within her as she tried to rise to a defensive stance, her bow trembling in her hands. But her body betrayed her. The poison's grip was too strong, and she fell to the ground with a soft thud, her breathing shallow. The human, despite his own visible fear, approached without hesitation. He knelt beside her, examining her wounds with tools she had never seen. His fingers moved with cautious precision, and she felt the warmth of his touch, not threatening, but steady. Kaylara's instincts urged her to lash out, to push him away, but her body refused to obey. She was too weak to fight. "I can help," the human said quietly, almost to himself. He scanned the dart lodged in her shoulder, muttering terms she could not understand, but the intent was clear. He worked quickly, removing the dart and pressing a cloth soaked in a strange green liquid to her wound. The burn of the poison eased slightly, though the sensation of weakness and nausea remained. Kaylara's sharp alien mind raced, realizing that she owed her survival to this human's boldness. Hours passed as she lay in the small clearing, barely conscious. The human continued to work tirelessly, tending to her wounds, scanning her for other signs of the poison's spread. Kaylara drifted in and out of awareness, seeing flashes of his focused expression, the gentle way he handled her limbs to keep her from moving too much, the careful application of alien herbs and human medicines mixed together. Despite the language barrier and cultural distance, she felt an unexpected bond forming, not of friendship, not yet, but of recognition. The forest around them was alive with sounds she could no longer fully process. Strange insects buzzed, and distant predators called to each other in the night. Kaylara, fighting against the dizzying effects of the poison, began to notice the human's courage. He was not a hunter, not a warrior. Yet he moved with the decisiveness of someone who understood that inaction meant death. That realization struck her with a force she had not expected. Humans were fragile, often clumsy. But in moments like these, some could show bravery that rivaled the strongest of her kind. Pain surged again, stronger this time, and she gasped, clutching her shoulder. The human reacted immediately, pressing the healing mixture deeper into the wound and applying pressure. "Stay with me," he whispered, voice steady, full of determination. Kaelara's pride bristled. She hated needing help, hated being vulnerable. Yet as the poison's effect pulled her toward darkness, she found herself unable to resist the care he offered. Time blurred. Kaelara's consciousness flickered, and in her mind, she relived her entire hunt. The careful stalking of prey, the precision of her strikes, the hours spent moving through the alien jungle. Now the roles were reversed. She was the one being hunted, not by predators, but by her own mortality. And yet, she was not alone. A human, small and seemingly fragile, fought for her life with unshakable determination. By morning, Kaelara could see the sun filtering through the dense canopy, painting patterns on the forest floor. She was still weak, but the poison's hold had begun to loosen. She tried to sit up, her body trembling violently, but the human steadied her. "Don't move too fast," he said, and she realized she could not argue. Her limbs were like lead, her strength a fraction of what it had been. She studied him quietly, noting the sweat on his brow, the dirt smudged across his clothing, the unwavering focus in his eyes. He was not like any human she had read about in her clan's histories or seen in distant settlements. There was a courage in him that was rare, a willingness to risk everything for another being. Kaelara's heart, long accustomed to solitary pride, felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Gratitude, respect, and something that might grow into trust. "Thank you," she managed to whisper, her voice hoarse and weak. The human looked up, surprised at her words, but nodded, acknowledging her recognition without expectation. She tried to rise, to regain her dignity, but her body refused. He helped her to a safer part of the clearing, away from the open areas where predators or rival hunters could find them. In that moment, Kaelara realized that survival was no longer about skill or cunning alone. It was about trust, about allowing another to step into her life and defy danger for her sake. She watched the human prepare a small fire, gathering odd-looking sticks and leaves, and marveled at his resourcefulness. Even without her strength, she felt a spark of hope, a fragile flame that perhaps she could live, not just survive, because someone had dared to act boldly on her behalf. Night returned again, and with it, the sounds of the jungle seemed louder, sharper, more dangerous. Kaelara, still lying on the ground, could feel the poison lingering in her veins, a reminder of how close she had come to death. The human never left her side, his eyes scanning the trees, ears attuned to every sound. He did not speak much, but his presence was enough. Kaelara closed her eyes, feeling a strange peace. For the first time since the dart had struck her, she was alive, and it was because of him. As she drifted into an uneasy sleep, her mind was filled with one thought. The human had risked everything for her, without question, without hesitation, and in that moment, Kaelara knew that her life, and perhaps the path of her future, had changed forever. The jungle whispered around them, alive with life and danger, yet for now, she was safe. For the first time in her life, the Huntress had become the one being, protected, and by a human. Kaelara awoke to the gentle glow of the jungle's luminescent plants. Her body ached in ways she hadn't felt before. Every movement reminded her of the poison that had almost claimed her life. She lifted a trembling hand and touched her shoulder, where the wound was still raw, but the sting of the dart had dulled, thanks to the human's careful treatment. Slowly, her vision focused on the figure beside her, Ethan, the human who had saved her. He was crouched near a small fire he had built, arranging strange tools and containers she did not recognize. Kaelara felt a mixture of pride and discomfort. She had always relied on herself, her skill, her speed, her instincts. To be saved by another, especially a human, was humbling. Yet she could not deny the gratitude that pressed at her chest. She had expected indifference, or perhaps fear, but Ethan's presence was steady, calm, and purposeful. Even after the long night, he had not faltered. "Good morning," he said, noticing her stirring. His voice was quiet, respectful, but carried an energy that suggested readiness. "You're awake!" "Don't try to move too fast." Kalara's lips pressed together. She tried to sit, but her legs buckled beneath her. Ethan immediately stepped forward, his hands steadying her. "Take it slow. You need strength before you can stand." She felt his support, and though it irked her pride, she did not resist. "I survived," she said, her voice rough. It sounded small even to her own ears. "Because of you." Ethan nodded. "I just did what needed to be done. You're stronger than most of the people I know, but this poison was fast. I didn't want to take chances." His eyes flicked over her wounds, and for a moment, Kalara saw a spark of admiration in them. That recognition, subtle as it was, touched something deep within her. She had never needed anyone, yet here was someone who had chosen to risk everything for her. Hours passed, and Kalara's body slowly regained some of its strength. Ethan worked tirelessly beside her, using a combination of human medical tools and native plants he had found in the jungle. He was precise, methodical, and careful. At times she drifted into sleep, only to awaken again, finding him still attentive, still ensuring her survival. The jungle outside seemed alive with danger, yet within this small clearing there was a strange sense of safety. As she rested, she began to observe him more closely. Ethan was not like other humans she had seen on distant settlements. There was a steadiness, an intelligence, and most importantly, a courage that radiated from him. He did not fear the forest, despite the predators and dangers that could strike at any moment. His courage was not reckless. It was thoughtful, measured, and entirely focused on action when needed. "I've never seen a human act like this," she said quietly, testing her voice. Ethan looked up at her, and she saw a mixture of surprise and curiosity in his eyes. "You mean you're impressed?" he asked lightly, though a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Kalara blinked. She had never considered the concept of human bravery in such terms. To her people, strength was measured in skill, speed, and endurance. Humans were fragile in comparison, but here was one whose courage exceeded expectation. She hesitated, searching for the words to explain the strange feelings forming in her chest. "You do not fear death for another. That is rare." Ethan shrugged, a little awkwardly. "I've faced dangerous things before, but helping you, I chose to do it. Sometimes that choice matters more than survival." Her alien heart, long trained to measure strength and survival as absolute, felt something unfamiliar. Respect, yes, but something beyond that. Curiosity, admiration, and perhaps something that might grow into trust. She did not understand it fully, yet she could not ignore it. By midday, Kalara was able to stand with assistance. Her legs trembled under her weight, but she forced herself upright, leaning on a branch to stabilize. Ethan handed her a water container, and she drank, feeling the cool liquid revive her from the inside out. Every sip was a reminder that survival was not always a solitary endeavor. Someone had made it possible for her to continue. "You need to rest," Ethan said, eyeing her carefully. "You're stronger, but your strength is not fully back. One wrong step, and the poison could still overwhelm you." Kalara nodded, unwilling to argue. She had learned humility in the harshest way possible, and even though her pride bristled, she could not deny the truth in his words. She let him guide her to a nearby spot, sheltered from the sunlight and predators. As she rested, she began to notice small details she had not observed before. Ethan's movements were precise, almost instinctual, as he collected herbs, tested mixtures, and monitored her vitals. Even though he was human, fragile by her standards, his mind and courage were formidable. She found herself thinking about him not as a human, but as an equal in intelligence and action. The conversation between them began slowly. Kalara's alien language was complex, but over time she learned to understand some of his human words. Ethan, patient and observant, did not rush her. They shared basic exchanges, questions about the jungle, and observations about the poison that had nearly killed her. In their dialogue, a bond began to form, a mutual recognition of courage, skill, and the will to survive. Hours later, Kalara finally attempted a short walk. Her body protested, but Ethan stayed by her side, alert to every falter. She moved slowly, scanning the jungle around them, instincts sharpening even in weakness. For the first time since her injury, she felt a sense of control. The poison no longer dictated her movements. She was moving on her own terms, guided by her will and Ethan's support. As they walked, the forest seemed to close in around them, shadows stretching like fingers between the giant trees. A distant sound of movement caught her attention, a rustle of leaves too deliberate to be a random animal. Kalara froze, her alien instincts screaming at her to prepare for combat. Ethan mirrored her caution, his eyes scanning the area. "You're strong," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Even injured, you can detect threats I would never notice." Kalara's chest swelled slightly. For the first time, she allowed herself to appreciate not only his courage, but the recognition he offered her. It was rare for anyone to acknowledge her skill without fear, envy, or judgment. She gave a small nod, silently agreeing that their partnership, however temporary, had merit. The day passed in cautious exploration. Ethan helped her navigate through the dense jungle, avoiding known predator zones and dangerous plants. They moved in silence more often than not, each observing the other's movements, learning patterns, and adjusting to one another. Kalara realized that for survival, humans and aliens could work together, two very different species combining instincts, skill, and courage to endure. By evening, they reached a small stream where they could rest. Ethan used the water to clean her wounds further, while Kalara surveyed the surrounding area, ensuring no threats approached. The sun dipped below the canopy, casting long shadows across the jungle floor. For the first time, Kalara felt a strange calm settle over her. She had survived the poison, survived her own pride, and survived the night, thanks to the human who had risked himself for her. As they prepared a small camp, Kalara spoke, her voice quieter than usual but steady. "I owe you my life. I do not forget this." Ethan looked at her, a small smile forming. "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because it was the right thing to do. But I'm glad you survived." Kalara studied him for a long moment. There was something different in humans, she realized. Fragile as they were, some possessed courage that rivaled the strongest Huntress. She could not explain why, but she felt moved. A bond had been formed, not through words, but through shared survival, shared danger, and shared courage. Night fell, and the jungle's bioluminescent glow bathed the clearing in soft light. Kalara settled beside the stream, her body exhausted but her mind alert. Ethan tended to the fire, watching over her without intrusion. She thought about the poison, the trap, the near-death experience that had brought them together. She had faced death before many times, but never had she been saved by someone so fearless, so willing to act boldly without hesitation. For the first time, Kalara understood that survival was not always about strength alone. It was about courage, trust, and action, qualities she had underestimated in humans. And as she drifted into a deep, careful sleep, she knew one truth above all. Her life had changed, and this human had left an impression she would never forget. The jungle hummed around them, alive with hidden threats. But Kaylara slept with a rare sense of peace. She had survived the poison, survived her injury, and survived the night, not just by her own skill, but by the fearless action of a human who had refused to let her die. The jungle had grown quiet in the early hours of the morning, the mist curling like fingers around the towering alien trees. Kaylara, though still recovering from the poison, moved with a careful grace. Her muscles were regaining their strength, and her reflexes, though slower than usual, remained sharp. She scanned the dense foliage, aware of every rustle, every subtle vibration. Survival instincts had been her guide all her life, but now she realized she wasn't alone in facing the dangers that lay ahead. Ethan walked beside her, his movements cautious but confident. He carried a small pack of supplies and a makeshift spear he had fashioned from a sharpened branch and metal fragments. Though not trained as a warrior, his resourcefulness had become apparent during the night. Every step he took reflected a calculated balance between caution and courage. Kaylara found herself studying him, noticing the way he observed the environment, the slight tension in his shoulders, and the steady focus in his eyes. Humans were fragile, yes, but this one possessed a bravery that rivaled even the most skilled hunters of her clan. As they moved, the sounds of the jungle shifted. A distant snap of twigs, followed by hurried movement among the undergrowth, reached Kaylara's ears. Her pulse quickened, and she instinctively crouched, scanning the trees and vines for threats. Ethan mirrored her caution, his gaze sweeping the area. "They're coming," Kaylara whispered, her voice low but firm. Ethan frowned. "Who? What is coming?" "Hunters," she replied. "Rivals of my kind? They know about the creature I was tracking. They will not let it go, or me." The words made Ethan tense. He had survived dangerous wildlife and hazardous terrain, but human or alien hunters were different. They were deliberate, intelligent, and merciless. Kaylara, despite her weakened state, gestured for him to follow as she led him through a narrow path, hidden by dense foliage. Her pace was slow, measured. Every step had to conserve her strength while keeping them ahead of the approaching threat. The undergrowth thickened, and Kaylara paused, listening. The sounds were closer now. Multiple sets of footfalls, the snap of branches, the soft hiss of alien weapons being readied. She scanned the trees for vantage points, calculating the positions she could use to defend herself if necessary. Her body was not yet fully healed, but her mind remained sharp. "They will expect me to fight alone," she said quietly. "They do not know a human is here. We can use that to our advantage." Ethan nodded. "Then we fight together." Kaylara studied him for a moment, considering his words. She was used to relying on herself, but there was a truth in what he said. Alone, she might have faced them and survived, but together, they had a chance not just to survive, but to turn the tables. She nodded. "Very well. Follow my lead." The first of the hunters emerged from the shadows. They were large, muscular aliens, their eyes sharp and predatory. Their weapons glinted faintly in the dim jungle light, and their movements were precise, as if they had anticipated Kaylara's every step. Yet they did not see Ethan, hidden carefully behind a cluster of vines, observing and waiting for the right moment. Kaylara stepped into view, her body still trembling but her mind focused. She drew her bow and fired a precise shot, striking one of the hunters in the shoulder. The alien howled in surprise, stumbling back. The others advanced cautiously, underestimating the huntress's resolve. Ethan acted without hesitation. He used a rope he had carried and swung a makeshift net into the path of one hunter, tripping it and sending it crashing into a tree. The move was clumsy, yet effective. Kaylara's eyes widened slightly in surprise. The human had calculated the timing perfectly, even without formal training. Together they began a coordinated attack. Kaylara's precision and speed allowed her to disable hunters quickly, while Ethan's ingenuity created unexpected obstacles and distractions. One hunter lunged at Kaylara, expecting her to be weak. Ethan rolled forward, using his spear to strike the hunter's legs. causing it to stumble into a vine trap Kiara had prepared moments earlier. The synergy between human and alien was immediate, instinctive, and deadly. The hunters, realizing they were facing more than just Kiara, regrouped. They attempted to flank her, but Ethan anticipated their movement. Using a combination of branches, vines, and calculated throws, he forced them into positions that exposed them to Kiara's attacks. Each movement he made demonstrated his courage, his quick thinking, and his growing understanding of her strategies. Kiara's chest heaved as she fought, her body still weak from the poison, but fueled by adrenaline and the need to survive. She watched Ethan move, noticing his fearlessness. He was putting himself at risk for her sake, and she could not help but feel something stir within her. Gratitude, respect, and something more complex that she did not yet name. The battle raged for what felt like hours. The hunters were skilled, but Kiara and Ethan's teamwork was evolving faster than the attackers could adapt. Every time Kiara fired an arrow or set a trap, Ethan supported her actions with creative solutions, blocking paths, creating diversions, and using the environment to their advantage. The combination of her training and his ingenuity made them an unexpected force. At one point, a hunter managed to reach Kiara, its claws slashing toward her. She barely dodged, stumbling backward. Ethan reacted instantly, intercepting the hunter with a heavy branch. The impact knocked it off balance, giving Kiara the opportunity to strike. She did not hesitate. Her arrow found its mark, and the hunter fell. Breathing heavily, Kiara turned to see Ethan steadying himself, his chest rising and falling rapidly. There was dirt on his face, sweat on his brow, and a faint cut on his hand, but he remained alert, watching for further threats. The sight made Kiara pause. Humans were fragile compared to her. Yet this one had faced danger without hesitation. He had risked injury and perhaps even death for her. She had expected fear, hesitation, maybe retreat, but not this level of bravery. The hunters, sensing their losses and the unexpected skill of their opponents, began to retreat. Kiara's heart pounded, but she allowed herself a moment to breathe. They had survived the encounter, but the lesson was clear. Survival was no longer a solitary pursuit. Even the strongest huntress could benefit from allies. And in Ethan, she had found more than just help. She had found courage that matched her own in surprising ways. As the jungle fell silent again, Kiara and Ethan stood among the remains of the ambush. She lowered her bow, her chest heaving, and studied the human beside her. He was breathing heavily, exhausted, but uninjured in any serious way. His determination had matched hers, his ingenuity had matched her skill, and his bravery had saved her life multiple times. "You are not like other humans," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "I hope that's a compliment." Kiara allowed herself a faint nod. "It is. You are remarkable." She did not fully understand the feeling welling within her, but she knew it was genuine. Respect, admiration, and perhaps something more had begun to form. A bond forged in danger and shared survival. The rest of the day passed in cautious preparation. They gathered water, inspected the area for traps, and ensured that no hunters remained nearby. Kiara's body ached, but her mind was alert. She realized that in moments like these, strength was measured not only by skill or speed, but by courage, trust, and the ability to act decisively in the face of danger. Ethan had demonstrated all of these in spades. As night fell, the two sat beside a small fire, the jungle glowing softly around them. Kiara's eyes scanned the darkness, alert as always, but her mind wandered briefly to the human beside her. He had risked everything for her, and in doing so, he had left her speechless, not with fear, but with awe and something deeper she did not yet name. The jungle hummed with life, but for the first time in days, Kiara allowed herself a measure of calm. They had survived the hunters, survived the poison, and survived the night. She had not done it alone. The human had stood beside her, brave and unwavering, and for that, she would never forget him. In that quiet moment, Kaylara realized something profound. Strength alone did not ensure survival. Courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act boldly on behalf of another could tip the balance. Ethan had shown her that humans, though fragile, could possess these qualities in abundance, and for the first time in her life, Kaylara felt a sense of respect and trust that transcended species, culture, and expectation. The night deepened, and Kaylara allowed herself to rest against a tree, her eyes half closed, watching the firelight dance across Ethan's face. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, but for now, she was alive, and that survival had been made possible by his courage and action. The jungle whispered around them, alive with hidden threats, but Kaylara slept with a rare sense of peace. The hunters had been driven away, the immediate danger had passed, and she had witnessed something extraordinary. A human standing fearless beside an alien huntress, facing danger not for glory or reward, but simply because it was the right thing to do. And in that moment, Kaylara understood that the bond formed in battle, trust forged in danger, and courage shared across worlds could be stronger than any weapon, faster than any arrow, and more powerful than the strongest poison. The sun rose over the alien jungle, casting long golden streaks through the dense canopy. Kaylara stretched her limbs, feeling the subtle stiffness of muscles that were finally regaining full strength. The poison was fully out of her system now, and her body no longer trembled with weakness. Yet, even as she stood, her mind was focused, aware that danger still lurked in the shadows of this vibrant, alien world. Ethan emerged from a small clearing, his makeshift spear in hand, surveying the area. He had spent the night monitoring the surroundings, ensuring no rival hunters would return. Despite the exhaustion etched into his posture, there was a determination in his gaze that matched Kaylara's own. Together they had survived the poison, the jungle, and the hunters who had sought to claim her life and the rare creature she had been tracking. Kaylara stepped beside him, feeling the strength in her legs returning. She tested her balance, moving silently through the undergrowth as she had done countless times before. Yet, there was a subtle difference now. She was not alone. She had a companion whose courage and ingenuity complemented her own skill. Humans were fragile compared to her people, yes. But Ethan had proven that bravery, intelligence, and the willingness to act boldly could equal the strength of the huntress herself. They reached the edge of the clearing where the luminescent creature they had been protecting had been resting. Its scales shimmered in soft blue and green light, illuminating the surrounding jungle in a gentle glow. Kayala crouched beside it, inspecting its wounds from the prior struggle with the hunters. There was only minor bruising, and it seemed alert and calm, as if aware that its survival had been aided by the human as much as by her. She looked at Ethan, who was kneeling nearby, watching the creature with a quiet sense of satisfaction. "You saved it," Kaylara said, her voice carrying a mixture of respect and awe. Ethan shrugged, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "We both did," he replied. "You wouldn't have made it without me, and I couldn't have done much without you." Kaylara studied him, noting the dirt on his clothing, the faint scratches on his hands, and the sweat glistening on his forehead. Despite all that, he had not faltered. His resolve had been unshakable, his courage unwavering, and his actions had saved not just her life, but the life of the creature that was essential to her clan. For the first time, Kaylara felt something unfamiliar stir within her, a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and a deeper curiosity she could not yet name. The morning passed in careful preparation. Kaylara and Ethan worked together to ensure that their temporary camp was secure. Kaylara taught Ethan how to read subtle signs in the forest, the snap of a twig, the shift of shadows, the faint movements that indicated the presence of another living being. Ethan absorbed everything quickly, demonstrating not only intelligence but a willingness to learn from someone so different from himself. Kaylara could not help but feel respect growing for him, with every passing hour. By midday, they began moving again, following the paths Kalara had once taken alone, now traversed together. Each step reminded her of how much had changed in such a short time. She had faced death, the poison, and rival hunters, yet she had survived. More importantly, she had discovered the strength in partnership and the courage of a human who had risked everything without hesitation. As they navigated a particularly dense section of the jungle, Kalara felt a familiar tension in the air. Her instincts flared, warning her of hidden movement. She crouched low, signaling Ethan to do the same. From the shadows, a small group of rival hunters emerged, their eyes narrowing as they spotted the pair. Kalara raised her bow, ready to fire, but Ethan held up a hand. He had been observing their approach carefully, calculating the best way to handle the threat. Ethan whispered, "Wait for my signal. I have an idea." Kalara's eyes narrowed in suspicion, but she trusted him. He moved swiftly, gathering vines and debris to create a makeshift trap. The hunters, unaware of the human's ingenuity, approached with confidence, believing that the weakened Huntress would be easy prey. Kalara held her breath, ready to act. At the precise moment, Ethan triggered the trap. A series of vines and branches fell, entangling two of the hunters and forcing them off balance. Kalara acted instantly, her arrows finding their targets with deadly accuracy. The hunters, now caught in an unexpected ambush, faltered. Ethan used the distraction to strike at them, his spear finding gaps in their defenses. The battle was brief but intense. Kalara moved with precision, her strength restored, while Ethan's ingenuity created opportunities for her attacks to land cleanly. They worked in perfect sync, each action complementing the other. The hunters, realizing they had underestimated their opponents, retreated into the jungle, leaving Kalara and Ethan victorious. Breathing heavily, Kalara lowered her bow and turned to Ethan. "You did well," she said, her voice calm but carrying a hint of admiration. Ethan smiled, brushing dirt from his clothes. "We did well. Couldn't have done it without your skills." Kalara studied him for a moment, realizing that the bond between them had deepened. It was no longer simply survival. It was mutual respect, trust, and a recognition of courage. She had faced countless challenges in her life, yet nothing had impressed her like the human who had stood fearless beside her, acting boldly when most would have hesitated. As the day progressed, they continued through the jungle, careful to avoid further encounters with rival hunters. Kalara's body felt stronger with each step, her confidence returning fully. She moved with the grace and precision of a huntress, yet now she had a companion whose courage and intelligence amplified her own abilities. Together, they were more than a huntress and a human. They were a team, a force capable of surviving even the deadliest threats the jungle could offer. By evening, they reached a small plateau overlooking a river that sparkled in the fading light. Kalara allowed herself a moment of rest, taking in the view. The jungle stretched endlessly before her, alive with life and danger, yet she felt a rare sense of peace. She glanced at Ethan, who had already set up a small fire. He looked tired, but his eyes were bright, alert, and unwavering. "You know," Kalara said softly, "I never expected to survive the poison. I certainly never expected a human to save me. I did not know humans could act with such courage." Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze.
"We are capable of more than most think. Courage isn't about strength alone.
It's about action, choice, and doing what's right when it matters most." Kalara nodded, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel something beyond gratitude, an admiration and trust that transcended species, culture, and expectation. She realized that strength alone did not ensure survival. Courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act boldly on behalf of another could be just as powerful. The night passed quietly. Kalara and Ethan maintained their watch, aware of the dangers that lurked in the jungle, but neither spoke much. Words were unnecessary. The bond between them was understood in their actions, their mutual vigilance, and the shared experiences that had forged their trust. By morning, Kalara's body was fully restored. She moved with the confidence and precision of a huntress at the peak of her skill. Ethan, though human, had proven himself capable in ways she had never anticipated. Together they had faced death, poison, and hunters, and they had survived through courage, ingenuity, and teamwork. Kalara finally spoke, her voice calm and measured. "You surprised me, human. I expected fear, hesitation, maybe retreat. But you acted boldly. You saved me, and in doing so, you have left me speechless." Ethan smiled, a faint blush on his face.
I didn't do it to impress you. I did it because it was the right thing to do.
"But I'm glad you survived." Kalara studied him for a long moment. There was a depth to his courage and intelligence that had earned her respect, admiration, and a bond she had never anticipated. She realized that even the strongest huntress could rely on another when faced with impossible odds. Survival was not always a solitary endeavor. It was sometimes defined by the courage and action of those willing to stand beside you. The jungle around them hummed with life, yet for the first time Kalara allowed herself a rare peace. She had survived the poison, defeated the hunters, and discovered the strength in partnership. She looked at Ethan, seeing not just a human, but a being capable of extraordinary bravery and action. As they prepared to leave the plateau and continue their journey, Kalara allowed herself a final thought. Life was precious. Survival was hard, but courage, shared courage, could change everything. She glanced at Ethan, and a small, genuine smile appeared on her face. He had acted boldly when she could not, and in doing so, he had left her truly speechless, not with fear, but with awe, respect, and a bond that could endure whatever the jungle or the universe might throw at them next. Together, they descended the plateau, walking side by side into the unknown, their courage, intelligence, and trust lighting the path ahead. Kalara had learned that even the strongest could benefit from allies, and Ethan had proven that humans, though fragile, could act with a bravery that rivaled even the most skilled of alien hunters. The jungle stretched endlessly before them, full of danger and opportunity, but for the first time, both felt certain of one truth. Survival was strongest when courage was shared.